While the topic-specific chart in the eVox software assists in reframing perceptions on a specific topic, the multi-topic and transgenerational charts allow you to expand your sessions for more comprehensive perception shifts. In this video, I'll explain how these charts work and how to use them. Now, if you haven't seen the video on how to run an eVox session, make sure to go back and watch that video before watching the rest of this one. That video goes through the basic steps of the reframing process, including successfully recording a new perception index, or PI, and then running a timed meditation. All right, we'll start with an overview of running a transgenerational reframing session first. With transgenerational reframing, the person does a voice recording on each of their parents, grandparents, and spouse, and then goes through the reframing process for each one in a specific order. Transgenerational reframing helps to reduce or mitigate any of the limiting perceptions that have been passed down from generation to generation. Many people don't realize this, but we inherit many of our perceptions from our ancestors. So this type of reframing is great for helping a person break through any of those emotional roadblocks that we may not be consciously aware of. It's highly recommended that you complete this chart for each of your clients because it can help them break free from a variety of limiting perceptions. So let's open this chart, and you can see here that we have the Self 1 PI, where you would record and then do a timed meditation, just like with a multi-topic chart. And the person would just talk about themselves in objective terms, so they should avoid any opinions or feelings, and that goes for any recording on this chart. So they can say something like, "My name is John Smith, I'm 45 years old, I have brown hair," things like that. Then you would do the timed meditation. And then after that, record the Self 2 PI. And after you record the Self 2 PI, you would move down here and select the family chart from this tab on the left. And now, on this chart, you can see all the relatives you would reframe on. And in the middle is the Self 2 recording that was just recorded. This is the chart that all the other charts here will be compared to. You'd first do a recording for each of these to create a perception index for each person. What you do is you come down here to the father chart, select it, start recording, and then the person would talk about their father in general terms. They could say things like, "My father's name is Jack Smith. He's 75 years old. He has dark hair. He's 5 feet 9 inches tall." Just basic things like that. You could also just repeat their name over and over. The important thing is not the words that you say, but that you're thinking about the person while you're speaking. Now, you may work with clients who don't know their parents or grandparents at all. Maybe they're adopted and don't know anything about their biological father or mother or grandparents. And in this case, they could just repeat the word father when recording the father perception index, and so on. All right, now that we're done with this recording, we can move on to the mother perception index chart and do our initial recording there. And then we can move on and record each of the person's grandparents, and finally the person would record on their spouse or significant other, if they have one. If not, this can just be removed or changed. You can also add additional perception indexes for other significant people in the client's life by clicking this Record New PI button. So you could add an ex-spouse here, a step-parent, or even a sibling or close friend. Once we've done all these recordings, we can then go through the perception reframing process for each one until we get a perception shift. And there's a specific order that we'll want to do these in based on the percentages. You can see this on the Instructions tab on the right of the screen. So for our first session, we'd want to reframe on the lowest percentage parent, followed by the highest percentage parent, and then the spouse or significant other if you have them. Then moving on, you would reframe on the highest percentage grandparent, and then finish with the Self 2 PI in the middle here and reframe on yourself for the 5th session. That means we would come over here to the parent chart that had the lowest percentage PI first, and then click the icon on the bottom right of this chart that says Create a New Chart from PI. From here, the client will go through the rounds of speaking about that person and doing a timed meditation until they get a releasing pattern or shift. So we do the voice recording, then click on that new chart and go in and run a timed meditation. And you would do this until you get a releasing pattern or dynamic shift for that person. Once one of these shifts occurs, you'll want to stop the session and come back later to reframe on the next person. Now, if your client goes through several rounds of reframing on one person and a releasing pattern or dynamic shift hasn't occurred, you can just stop the session and come back to it in the next session. You only need to complete the transgenerational chart once for whoever you run it on. That's the nice thing, is that once that shift is made, it becomes a permanent thing, so you don't have to go back and do it again. One last thing to note here is that you'll typically want to wait at least 3 days between sessions when progressing through this chart. Or, to get the person's preferred time until the next session, you can come back to the main client tab and run this session interval scan. So, that covers the basics of the transgenerational reframing and how to proceed through the chart. Okay, let's move on to multi-topic reframing. And this process is actually very similar to transgenerational reframing, but instead of reframing on relatives, we're reframing on the subtopics of a main topic that we chose. Going through the multi-topic chart helps you to address the topic in a more complete way. So say you're working with a client on weight loss. That would be our main topic. But then we can break that down into other things that impact weight, like eating healthy foods, getting exercise, self-esteem, and maybe getting enough sleep. So each of those could be separate sessions around one main topic of losing weight. That's just one example. All right, let's see how this chart would look and how you'd progress through it. From the client screen and the eVox tab, I'll select multi-topic from this dropdown. Then name it weight loss and click Save. It will then show the main topic with 2 perception charts. From here, we would select the first weight loss chart and record. Once you've clicked on the first weight loss chart and completed the timed meditation, you can click on the second weight loss chart, and you'll record again. But this time, you don't need to run a timed meditation. As you can see, this works exactly like the transgenerational reframing process, but instead of the person speaking about themselves, they speak about that main topic. The rest of this process also works in a similar fashion. So now, we've completed these 2 charts, and we can click on Associated Topic on the left tab here. And this is going to pull in our second recording and use that as the ideal perception to compare to the other topics the client will reframe on. Now, we select this first associated topic chart, and let's start with diet. So we'll name it diet. And after you've done the voice recording on that, you would do the same thing for each associated topic. So let's do exercise here, record, and then self-esteem. Record that for 10 seconds, and then we'll do sleep as the fourth one and record that PI. If you'd like to do more than 4 topics, you can just come up to this Record New PI button and record, and it will create a new chart for you. One thing we can do here to get the preferred number of topics for that person is to run a multi-topic number biosurvey here. So we can click on the eVox tab back on our main client tab and select that biosurvey. And that will run a scan with the hand cradle and tell us how many associated topics are ideal for that person for this chart. All right, now we've done our initial recordings, and the most direct way to move through this is to reframe on the highest percentage topic first. There's also a biosurvey you can run to determine whether to start with the topic with the highest percentage topic or to start with the lowest percentage topic. But the most direct way to progress through this is to start with the highest percentage topic. So here's our highest percentage topic, and now we'll click on the Create New Chart from PI icon at the bottom right of the screen or of the chart, and that will create a new chart for that topic. And now, just like we do with a transgenerational chart or single topic chart, you'd record again and do another timed meditation. Then you would go through as many rounds as it takes until we get a releasing pattern or dynamic shift, which will show up in red text on the top right here when that occurs. Once the person has successfully reframed on that first topic, we can now move on to the second highest topic by percentage and go through the process again. Now, just like transgenerational reframing, the multi-topic chart will take several sessions to complete because we'll only want to reframe on a maximum of one subtopic for each session. Like the transgenerational chart, you'll typically want to wait at least 3 days between sessions when progressing through this chart as well. Or you can come back to the main click tab and run this session interval scan to get the person's preferred interval duration. All right, those are the basics of running a transgenerational or multi-topic reframing session with the EVOX. These are both great charts to go through to address emotional wellness in a very powerful way. So make sure to make them part of your EVOX experience.